Welcome, everyone. Does anybody else have a special guest they brought with them they may want to introduce?
Charles brought his wife.
Oh, Charles, okay. Charles, you want to introduce your wife, please?
I will. The next First Lady of Maryland, Miss Rochelle.
Tonight, each candidate will get a 2-minute intro. You'll also have a 2-minute closing. As you're asked a question, you have 1 minute to answer the question. You will each have a total of 4 questions to answer. And I think that's probably about it. As far as the rules go, it's pretty laid back, pretty easy. And I think we'll just get started. This has all been random. The order is random. I can't tell you what I have here. And the questions are random. So,
Diane.
yes. Oh, I'm sorry. And in the back, Miss Karen, she's going to keep time so that when she waves at you, you have 15 seconds left. Okay? So, okay? I would ask that if you wanted to stand and feel comfortable when you're answering your question, you feel free to. I don't know whether the cord is going to be that friendly. But if it is, you know, rip it up off the floor. I did. Okay, our first question. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, yes I did. See, we went just that fast, we did 2-minute intros, everybody heard them or on the questions. So we'll start with the way I made the introductions here. We'll start with Jolene Ivy with the 2-minute intro.
Thank you.
Is it on?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here tonight. Great to see you, Diane. We could have carpooled.
We could have.
Of course, the way the traffic is, we would have had to carpool many hours ago to get here on time, right? I'm Jolene Ivy. I'm a delegate from Prince George's County. I'm chair of the Prince George's County delegation. I'm married to Glenn Ivy, who used to be the state's attorney for Prince George's. We've been married for 25 years, and we have 5 beautiful boys. Wow. I've been a delegate for 8 years and chair of the delegation now. And for the years I was home with my children, I was home for 16 years. And I think I was a working mother then, let me tell you. And I started an organization then called MOCA Moms. It's a support group for at-home mothers of color. I'm a regular contributor on Michelle Martin's NPR show that's called Tell Me More. And she does a segment called The Moms. For a while it was called the MOCA Moms, but she changed it to The Moms. I haven't been able to do it since I got on the campaign trail with Doug, but I look forward to rejoining the show at some point. It's really fun to do. As a person who's been home with my kids so long and then joined the workforce again as an elected official, it's been a big change to my life and the life of my family, but it's worth it because you know what I'm doing now? I'm working to make other women's lives better and other children. Anytime you're doing something where you're looking out for families. So I've got 15 seconds to wind this up. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm representing Doug Gansler. He's been married to his wife for 22 years, and his wife Laura is quite an experienced writer and attorney, and now her hand is up again. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jolene. Cindy?
Hello everyone. My name is Cindy Walsh. I'm a candidate, Democratic candidate for Governor of Maryland. I'd like to start by introducing the idea that the 2014 and the 2016 elections are some of the most important in American history. These elections will decide as a nation Do we want to continue down this path of global markets, global corporations that started with the Reagan-Clinton years, now went through Bush and now Obama? Or do we stop at this crossroads and say, we kind of liked how things were before the Reagan-Clinton years, when we had a thriving domestic economy, when we had a thriving middle class, a first-world quality of life, corporations were earning millions of dollars in profits instead of billions. So this is a campaign about whether or not we're going to be embracing the idea of global corporations coming in and taking over the state, and Maryland is very directed towards global corporate businesses. Or do we focus on bringing in, building a domestic economy with small businesses and regional businesses and giving them the priority? That's what my campaign is about. I will be rebuilding public justice in the system, making sure that all of the fraud and corruption in the government is stopped. We can bring back billions to our state coffers simply by doing that, and then we send that money to the communities to support our social services, our public services and social programs. So public justice and rebuilding oversight and accountability over corporation and government, that is the basis of my platform. Please take a look, Maryland elections, governor's race, Cindy Walsh. Take a look at the campaign website and you'll see my platform is for you, no matter if you're Republican or Democrat.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mr. Ron George.
Good evening. Could you get your foot off it, Joey? No,
Not my foot, it's
no, I was kidding. I was just kidding. That's fine. My name is Ron George. I'm a delegate. I currently serve in the State House. I have for the past 8 years. I'm a small business owner on Main Street, Annapolis. My wife and I started the business in 1991. Before that, I had a business of doing jewelry repair work and design. First of all, congratulations on your 85th anniversary for business professional women. This is awesome. You've come a long way, baby. When it started, I mean, a vast number of people were teachers. It's good to see there's still many teachers involved. And to those from Anne Arundel County and Severna Park and even Laurel, hello. It's good to see you. I designed and made jewelry. My dad couldn't afford to send me to college. I went to a trade school and I learned this trade and I became good at it. Then I found out there were no jewelers in Syracuse, New York. They were all sending their work to New York. So I went up there and set up a shop. And I would work from early in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon and then go to Syracuse and take my courses. Other semesters, I do all my courses in the morning and work in the afternoon and evening. And I paid my way through and graduated in 4 years. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I use that for counseling services and volunteer work. In New York City, I used to counsel runways push-outs. I'd see young women that were pushed into drugs and then prostitution who would run away from home. You talk about human trafficking, I saw it firsthand in New York. You have those experiences. I am a Republican, but I've also worked in the inner city, and I understand those problems. So if you go to my plan at voterongeorge.com, you'll see how I will help bring this economy back, create entry-level and mid-level jobs in manufacturing and things. I understand small business. They're kind of forgotten. Everyone thinks it's going to trickle down to them, and we can get that back. And she's waving. Hi. Fast 2 minutes. But anyway, voterongeorge.com, it was called the most comprehensive, and then I was later putting together a very good plan. So go look at it there. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Ron George. Our next introduction will be filling in again, as I said, for Larry Hogan, will be the running mate, Boyd Rutherford.
Yes. Thank you. There's a little short. As was mentioned, I'm Boyd Rutherford. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor along with Larry Hogan. And I want to just introduce Larry a little bit. Thank you. Larry Hogan is a businessman, a family man. He is not a career politician, and nor am I. This is my first time actually running for office. Larry started 3 years ago a grassroots, nonpartisan group called Change Maryland. And during that time, he became a leading voice in opposition to the policies that were going on in Annapolis, the policies of the O'Malley-Brown administration that has created a situation where we've lost 6,500 small businesses in the last 7 years, where we've had 40 increases in taxes and fees, where we're losing companies and we're losing population. We've had the largest outflow of citizens of any other state in the Mid-Atlantic. And a lot of that is due to the fact that people are losing hope, I should say. We're concerned about job growth for our kids. Our parents and grandparents are concerned about how they can afford to retire or stay retired here on a fixed income because our tax structure and our fee structure is so high. Larry set out with Change Maryland to address that issue. He decided that the best way to do it is to challenge for governor. He asked me to join him, which was a difficult decision on my part. It was even more on my wife's part, a difficult decision, but our 3 children were very happy about it. The fortunate thing, they're adult children. The youngest is 20, so it wasn't. I wasn't concerned about them being in that K-12 time frame. Lastly, I have a history in government. I worked for Governor Ehrlich, where I was Secretary of the Maryland Department of General Services. Before that, I worked in the Bush administration, at General Services Administration, and later as Assistant Secretary for Agriculture. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be candidate Charles Lawler.
Well, good evening. I'm Charles Lawler, running to be your governor here in Maryland. I'm a 17-year Marine officer, 16-year businessman. I work at Centos Corporation as a business executive. I have 212 employees and manage a P&L of just under $23 million a year. I've been married for 21 years this year to Miss Rocha. We have 4 beautiful daughters, which tells you I know my place in the world. And it is at the bottom, next to the base. And the most handsome grandson you'd ever meet. I thank the good Lord for that, because after raising 4 girls, I deserve the boy. I'm running for governor because we have very real problems in this state, and I'm not interested in playing partisan politics. I'm tired of blaming parties. I'm tired of pointing fingers. I'm tired of using partisan policy, skin color, and gender to further divide and segregate us. It's time for us to have conversations, meaningful ones, about where we're going and how to solve them. Yes, it's true we've lost over 4,000 businesses in this state. And yes, it's true that we've increased taxes 40 different times in this state. But it's more than just a partisan problem. The problem is we're unable to communicate about solutions, because the first question people want to ask is, what is your party affiliation? Because they think it's some type of a stab in the back from one party to the next. I'm tired of it. It's time for a new way forward. I want you to be bold enough with me to take that new way forward. If there's one thing I've learned from the Marine Corps is identify who the enemy is appropriately and then find the 80% solution and go after it. I'm convinced that the solution is out there, but I need you, along with me and our team, working together to find it. Again, I'm not interested in blaming one party over another. I want to bring people together. A Lawler-Timmerman administration will do just that. I'm excited about the opportunity to talk to you. Again, I don't play partisan politics, so I'm not good with little snappy jokes, but I do look forward to talking to you going forward as we discuss the future of our state and a new way forward. Thank you very much.
Charles Lawler, thank you. And our last speaker will be Sean Quinn.
Hi everybody, how you doing today? How many of you heard of me? You know why that is? Because I'm not part of the two-party agenda. I'm a libertarian. I was born here in Maryland. I grew up in Philadelphia, and when I graduated high school, I joined the Navy, and they sent me back to Maryland. I spent 12 years here at NAS Pax River defending this country. Then I went to Norfolk for my last tour, retired, and I became an officer of the peace. I worked in a jail and I worked in a prison, serving my community again. Then I met my wife, and then I've come back to Maryland, getting married, and I've lived here ever since. Right now, I'm a hazardous material truck driver in Maryland. I'm a working man. I go to work 40 hours a week. To come here tonight, I had to take the night off and lose a day's pay. But you were worth it. You're the people in Maryland. You're who I want to work for. Now, a lot of people are going to promise you that they're here to fight for you. You don't need somebody to fight for you. You need somebody to fight with you. You need somebody on your side. The two-party agenda has never been on your side. They raise your taxes. They add fees. They just raised your gas tax again. They gave some counties a rain tax. It's ridiculous. 50% of my pay goes right back to the government in some form. How can we expect to achieve anything when we're just giving our money away? The only way we're going to stop this is to have a referee for the two-party agenda. And the governor's office is a perfect place for a referee, because neither party can tell me what to do as the governor. I don't belong to their parties. They can't force me to do anything, and I have no special interest. So today I came here to talk to you. I will answer any question you have. If you didn't get your question answered here, send me an email. I have a Facebook page, and I have a website, and I answer every question personally. I don't have some flunky send you a form letter saying this is where we stand. I will answer your question. That means I have 15 seconds, right? Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up for right now. I look forward to your questions, and when everything's over, if you want to talk to me personally, I'll stick around here as long as you need me to stay. Have a good evening, and thank you, ladies, for inviting me. This is historic. Libertarians do not get invited before the primary to any place.
I told you when we got started, it's pretty laid back. You'll actually end up having fun tonight. Each question that will be asked, two people will be asked the same question, so that the whole slate won't be asked the same question, but every two people will be asked the same question. But you will have the opportunity to answer 4 questions. This is a 1-minute answer per question, and again, Ms. Karen will wave at you and let you know when your time's almost up. So this first question will go to Boyd Rutherford. Early childhood education, including the Head Start program, has suffered funding cuts and funding elimination. What should the state's role be in supporting early childhood education, and how would you implement that support?
Well, it is important to have early childhood education. What we would want to do is to encourage the faith community, the non-governmental organizations to work with the state Department of Education to encourage this to continue. A lot of what we would need to do, though, is to get to parents and to explain to them the importance of this early childhood education. We cannot take away the role of parents when it comes to raising children and making sure that their students, their children are prepared. But at the same time, we have to understand that not all parents are equipped to do quite that, to be quite frank with you. There are a lot of challenges in our communities, and we need to be able to support them as well. Thank you. I saw the hand go up.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Ivy, the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, that's okay. I'm just happy I got it, because I told Ron, I want that question. So I know very well as mom and as a legislator how important, as you were just saying, early childhood is. And it really starts from the time the woman is pregnant, right? We all know that. And there is a program right now called home visiting. And the way that works is a social worker comes to an at-risk mom's home, young teen mom's home, and it's a voluntary program. There's a waiting list for it. And the social worker works with that woman, that young woman, from the time she's pregnant until the child goes to pre-K. Because if you don't get that intervention early on, the child will not do as well. So the children who participate, they make it, the moms make it to their prenatal appointments, the babies get their vaccines, and the mom learns how to read to her child, how to talk to her child, and the children who participate end up having a lower incidence of child abuse and a higher incidence of entering school ready to learn. They enter school with an 8,000 word vocabulary instead of a 3,000 word vocabulary, and we're going to expand that program using the faith community and student teachers and other volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ivy. Before I go on with any other questions, I just made up another rule. You know, it's my game, make up the rules, just go along. A lot of times we'll say to people, well, I have a plan and you can see it on my website on, please do not answer a question that way. We are here to hear your plan and not hear what your website is, okay? So that's probably the last rule I'll have. Thank you very much. Yeah, sure. See, remember I talked to myself. Okay, this next question is for Cindy Walsh, I'm sorry, Cindy. Safety on campus is a rising public concern. There have been recent cases at many colleges and universities within our state, including the Naval Academy. How will your office address this concern, especially at the public universities which receive state funding?
Cindy Walsh for governor is an academic. That's what my degrees are in science and education, and that is my passion, public education. So let me start off by saying that the culture that you develop at a university will determine how behaviors rise. What we've had over the last 2 decades in Maryland is a corporatization of our public universities. This is a huge mistake, and I'm definitely out there saying that we need to stop it, we need to break the corporate connections and go back to being strong public universities. What we're doing is basically subsidizing corporate research and development by attaching them to our public universities. It's making our professors into corporate executives rather than academics. It's opening up this whole culture of competitiveness and bullying that goes the culture of workplace and winning. That's not what public universities are about. It's very important, folks, that we have strong public universities that are geared towards accepting all of our residents in the state of Maryland. We don't need to be recruiting people in from other cultures other countries to come in simply so that they can pay higher tuition rates that are generated by that corporate connection. We need to break that connection. We need to lower the tuition rates by doing it, and we also will be free of that culture of corporate competition, bullying, and competitiveness. That will solve the problems of rape or domestic violence against the women on the campus. Believe me.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Mr. Quinn, I would ask you the same question. Would you want me to reread it?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
This is actually a really easy question. They're taking tax dollars, state tax dollars. As a matter of fact, in 2015, they've increased college tuition, money to the colleges by $95 million. All the government has to do is start holding colleges accountable. If they don't take care of the problem, we start taking the money away. I guarantee you, as soon as they start losing money, the people running the college are going to say, wait, we want our money, and the problem will get fixed. Because that's how the schools work in the state. When you take their money away, they respond. They did it when we started standardized testing. When money went away, when tests weren't passed, they started teaching the test because they wanted the money back. So if we start taking the money away from the colleges will fix the problem to get their money back. And that is how easy it is to fix this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. This next question is for Mr. Lawler. Over 700,000 working Marylanders are unable to earn paid sick days. Given the reality of today's working families, do you support a proposal that would allow workers to earn up to 7 paid sick days per year while requiring businesses with fewer than 10 employees to provide only job-protected unpaid sick days?
The short answer is yes. Our economic policy, however, will allow businesses to do that. The reason why we're pushing businesses out of this state over the past 7-8 years is not because these businesses don't want to open up more opportunity for their employees. This whole idea that employers are against employees that's been created within our state is absolutely wrong. Listen, folks, I've visited over 300 small businesses in this state. They want to do better for their employees. They want to see them grow. They want to build a stronger base here in the state of Maryland in which to grow and hire more people, because they understand you get far more from actual people than you ever will from automation. But again, the rhetoric that comes out of Annapolis, I'm going right back to the same mantra I started my conversations with. I'm tired of using partisan politics to keep people separated and divided. We want to work together, but until we do something with this rain tax, until we do something with these 84 taxes and regulations that are stopping work from happening and handcuffing businesses, what else can we do? So the short answer is yes, and our economic policy will absolutely put businesses in a position where they can do so.
Thank you. Ms. Ivy, the same question is for you. Would you like me to reread the question?
No, I'm happy to take the question. Earned sick leave. I wrote an op-ed in the Baltimore Sun in December I think it was December 7th, if you want to check. I could have that wrong. But to support the earned sick leave bill. It's so important, and it mostly affects women, because we're the ones who take care of the sick children. We're the ones who take care of our sick parents, and we don't ever get to take care of sick us. And either way, if your child is sick and you're forced to take the day off because you really do have to do that, you might get the sickness that your child had, then you go to work and make everybody around you sick because you can't afford to take any more time off. So this is a critically important issue, especially for hourly workers, who are the ones most impacted by this. And we really have to pass an earned sick leave bill. And under a Gansler Ivey administration, it's going to happen. It's one of our platform planks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this next question is for Mr. George. Tuition costs continue to rise, leaving many of our young residents deeply in debt. What role do you believe the state should play in addressing this economic issue, and how would your administration do that?
You know, really, I have to break it down, I think, into different professions and what the majors are that they work in. For instance, we're not keeping our interns in the state, our young doctors after they graduate out of medical schools, because the cost of living is so high here and they have tremendous tuition to pay back. You know, so I've gone through different professions and we've worked out plans. I'll use that one as an example. Their third and fourth year, they're actually working inside the hospitals. They're doing all of this work. We should give them decreased tuition rates for that period, because they're not getting paid for it. They're supposed to be getting credits for it. And they're doing so much of the work. And I've talked about that with different physicians in the medical schools, and they think it would be a good idea because it would help them to stay in the state. And in 5 years, we're going to have a real healthcare crisis because physicians are going to retire. We can't replace them. But I think all across the board, special rates, tuition rates, the lower interest loans like we used to have with the National Student Defense loans, as they were called, where they were 3% or 2% at the highest, lowering those rates and making them more reasonable. It's 1 minute to do something I could go on for 20 minutes for. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, Ms. Walsh, same question. Would you like me to reread it?
I think I kind of answered it with the last one, but I can
Okay.
Hello. University tuitions have risen, as I've said, over the last couple of decades because of this corporate partnership that has the university, the taxpayers, and the students subsidizing corporate research and development. That's what this whole system of corporations tied to our universities is about. That's what caused the tuitions to go up. The idea of recruiting overseas for foreign students who they think can pay more is what justifies those high tuitions. So that is the problem. Dismantling the corporate structure from our public universities is a solution. So tuition will go down. Also, all of that tax money that's going into this corporate subsidy for research and development at universities can then revert back to where it used to be, and that is financial aid, grants, and scholarships. See, that's where all of our funding has gone, and that is what's turned this education system upside down.
Thank you. Time is up. Thank you. Thank you very much. This next question will be from Mr. Quinn and Mr. Lawler. So first we'll go with Mr. Quinn. How do we find good upper-level management jobs for the physically challenged?
This is kind of funny. I was just talking to somebody about this. She happens to be what they call disabled, which both me and her agree that that's a bad word because it's a negative. Just because somebody is not 100% doesn't mean that their mind doesn't work. It doesn't mean that they can't do a job. I personally get really mad when I see an application and it has boxes on it that says male, female, disabled, vet. What does that have to do with your qualifications for doing a job? I personally, if somebody comes to me with an application, I don't care if you're black, purple, pink, male, female. If you're the best qualified person for a job that I'm looking to fill, guess what? You can crawl in there on your hands and feet and I'm going to hire you. And that's how we have to start looking at people that we think are disabled. We have to stop looking at them sideways and say, well, are they going to have a problem in 6 months? That's irrelevant. If they have the qualifications, give them a chance to do the job. If they can't do it, that's when you tell them there's the door, not before.
Thank you.
We simply do so by enforcing the law and treating people equal. It's that simple. When we find a case where they're not being worse, an individual is not being treated equal, then we prosecute it to the full extent of the law and get the backing of the governor and the leadership. You make sure people are treated fair. This works for everyone, not just folks that are disabled, but also folks that are minorities, diversity. It doesn't matter. White, black, red, brown, or indifferent. You enforce the law, you be fair, equal rights, opportunity, insurance done. It's that simple.
Thank you very much. This next question will be for Ms. Ivy and Mr. George. So Ms. Ivy, you will go first. What specific programs or funding strategies would your administration support to expand the availability of affordable legal services to address domestic and family law matters, particularly for domestic violence victims and legal representation for low and middle income individuals in both civil and criminal cases?
Thank you very much. As we all know, domestic violence continues to be a horrible problem. And the first bill that I put in when I became a delegate increased the marriage license fee in Prince George's County, and that $15 extra goes to fund the Family Crisis Center. Now, I'm not going to tell you that that's enough money. It's really a drop in the bucket as to what we need. But it did show me that there is a way. I think it raises about $300,000 a year, and clearly we need more. But there are ways or things that we can look at. Perhaps divorce filing fees is one place to look, where we could increase a fee in that way and have the money directed to such a thing. You know, Doug Gansler actually started the Family Justice Center in Montgomery County, which brings all domestic violence services under one roof so that a woman has one place to go when she needs the help and doesn't have to drag her kids all over town for the help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I chaired the Anne Arundel County delegation, and we had the YWCA from Anne Arundel County come to us, and they were doing some counseling services for women who had been from spousal abuse, and they needed a place to stay, a place to go. They needed counseling, and they also needed the services of lawyers. And so through a grant program, we've been promoting for them to be able to allow them to have the money to be able to do that through state grant. We've done grant money, we've done bond bills for all kinds of things. Sometimes they're nonprofits, sometimes they're just a arts program. I think you really need to do programs like this first and foremost. These people that are suffering and they need the help to get back on on their feet. So I think we need to move this way up the list. I was surprised to see how this didn't seem as important to some people as some of the other issues. And we really need to move it way up. And I think we should do this kind of thing throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Walsh? No, I'm sorry. That's the next question. Wait a minute. This is Mr. George. Hold it. Now you're going to hear me talk to myself a little bit.
Say hello for us.
I was right with the question. Now, this next question is for Mr. Rutherford and Ms. Walsh. Mr. Rutherford, you will be first. Maryland's elementary schools are among the top in the country. However, our middle and high schools are lagging behind. What would you do to improve learning at these levels?
Well, the school system generally in Maryland is good. I say generally, but there is a divide. It depends largely on what zip code, what county, census tract that you may live in. One of the things that we can do now understand, the education is at the local level, but the governor controls the budget, and I think that's what was mentioned once before. And there's money that comes from the state with regard to first school construction, and there's also aid to the counties. So you can hold the local jurisdictions responsible when they come to the governor's office, when they come to the Board of Public Works, seeking revenue for their schools to look at what the performance has been in, as you mentioned, the middle schools and high schools. In closing, since I saw the hand go up, I think we do need to return also to what we once had when I was a kid, and that was trade schools as well. Not everyone is college prep. And the trade schools produce the entrepreneurial class. They produce the guys and gals who live up on the hill. So that would be one thing I'd like to encourage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Walsh?
As a resident of Baltimore City, I can give some insight as to what I think is going to be happening, I'm pretty sure, throughout the state. Baltimore City is well on its way to being a completely privatized school system. It is nothing but charters. The schools are being connected to businesses. It's becoming vocational tracking from elementary school all the way through community college. I am against this. I don't like Race to the Top. I don't like Common Core. All we needed to do to get our schools up to par was to give the schools more funding, more resources, and give the teachers help in the classroom. So I would ask everybody in this room to keep an eye on what's going on in Baltimore City, because they're building a platform to privatize the entire state system with national charter chains. You're not going to have a choice. If you think that your charter school in your community is cute and warm and fuzzy, you're not going to like when Wall Street national charter chains come and take over the entire public system. So we're getting a tracking from elementary all the way through high school, vocational tracking. We don't want that. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is for Mr. Lawler and Mr. Quinn. We'll start with Mr. Lawler. It's pretty difficult economically to retire in Maryland. What would you do to keep retirees in the state?
Yeah, that's a very good assessment, and it is very difficult. Part of our policy specifically when it comes to first responders is we want to see that their income, specifically their retirement income, is not taxed. We also would like to work with our teachers, including first responders in our military, to see that their retirement is not taxed, because we consider them public servants. I'm sure you do too. The only way for us to get there, however, is we've got to get our budget under control. We've got to keep from having to depend upon $9.3 billion from the federal government. We have to audit every one of our departments and treat it as if it's our own money. We have to go back to a zero-based budgeting policy that starts with what you need for today and not what you had last year. We need to pass policies that incentivize your government to save money and not to spend it all. There are little things that we can do to start with leadership at the top to ensure that we have the economic stance and opportunity to be able to do these things. We can't just talk about making these things happen if we are not equally concerned with how to control the spending from the beginning. A lot of administration will do that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Quinn?
How many of you know how many taxes we actually have in this state? Nobody? Over 47 different taxes in this state. Even if those taxes were only 1%, that's 47% of your income. Do you think that somebody retired can live on 47% of that retirement pay? My father-in-law couldn't. He lives in Texas now. 50% of the state, when polled, said they want to live somewhere else. That's because the cost of living here is too high, taxes too high. Just recently, I sat there and listened to the lieutenant governor talk about how he backs raising the gas tax. It was a tough thing, but it had to be done. Do you think he took you into consideration when you had to go to work? You think it bothers him? He makes over $170,000 a year. You think he cares about a gas tax? It's you and me that will make less than $100,000 that have to get to work that worry about that tax. If we don't start cutting these taxes, nobody's going to want to live here.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Lawler. We'll start with Mr. Rutherford. How would your administration fund services for children, teen, and adult victims of human trafficking?
Well, first of all, and I think Charles would agree with this, we have to enforce the law. I mean, first and foremost, we have to be aggressive in terms of addressing that issue within our state and those that are brought into our state. We have to work with our federal authorities to help us in that regard. In terms of how we address the individual victims, it's going to be a question of what all the needs are. I am not going to sit here and state exactly where I think the funds are going to come from. I think there's enough money in our budget now, if nothing else. We spend a lot of money on a lot of things that are probably not priorities, and they're definitely not as priorities as what you just mentioned in terms of addressing human trafficking. So in terms of new revenue sources, I don't think we need those. We have enough revenue. It's a spending issue that we have. And I think I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lawler?
Public safety in this state, the partnerships between law enforcement and state troopers is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. If you ask any sheriff, whether the one here in Frederick County, down on Eastern Shore, in Prince George's County, I've had a chance to talk to 7 different sheriffs in the state. Until we develop better partnerships, roles need to be defined. From the superintendent, from the state troopers all the way down, from the governor's level, as well as what we count on our counties to do. There should be a better working relationship between the two. Human trafficking is one major issue in our state. There's other. There's heroin. There's marijuana. Also, there's illegal immigration. We have to start taking these issues seriously. Quite frankly, I believe the reason why we can't talk about these is they're so divisive from a partisan perspective. Until we have a conversation of how do we get our public safety experts working together, define the roles. So when there's a simple traffic stop, what does a state trooper do? How does that partnership come together with local officials so we can stop this revolving door of bringing people in that are guilty and send them right back out because of partnership failures at the very beginning levels? Our administration will identify that. I need more than a minute to answer these questions. I need more.
Thank you very much.
I can solve the world in 30 seconds.
This next question is from Ms. Walsh and Ms. Ivy. And we'll start with Ms. Walsh first. What strategies would your administration support to hold domestic violence and sexual assault offenders accountable for their behavior?
Well, first of all, I want to say that we, especially in Baltimore, we have the worst criminal justice system that can possibly be. It doesn't encourage any kind of positive situation for the community and for the victims or the perpetrators. So to get to the source of those kinds of problems, you need to first make sure that you have a criminal justice system that is just. And you have to make sure that your police are interacting with the community in a constitutional and just way. Otherwise, you're not going to have people reporting crimes, you're not going to have people responding honestly to crimes, and that is what is hindering a lot of help that we are failing to get to our victims of domestic violence and rape. In Richmond, police officers were actually at some point not even answering rape calls because they thought domestic violence wasn't important. So my administration would make it extremely important. I would be on the police department making sure that they addressed every crime as very important, and especially domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting, when you asked the question, at first I was thinking, well, what other ways could we punish someone or threaten them to keep them from doing it? But I think one important thing that we don't usually think about is we need to elect more women to office. Because if we have more women in office, I like that. No, but it's really true. I mean, we have a situation right now in Maryland where there's a chair of a committee that oversees a lot of these bills, and he's a defense attorney. And he has not been letting these bills out that would help domestic violence victims. But he's got a woman running against him right now, and guess what? Those bills started coming out. So there's a bill that Doug Gansler sponsored last year that passed this year, well, not passed last year, but it passed this year. Domestic violence committed in the presence of a child is now something that gets you an additional charge. So the hand went up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this next question comes with an introduction and a rationale and a question. This is from Mr. Rutherford and Mr. George. So, the intro to the question. Maryland's Medicaid costs are well above the national average. At the same time, the need for long-term care is increasing. A large portion of Medicaid funds pays for treatment and cognitive care for an aging population financially unprepared for retirement. Mistakenly believing that Medicare will pay for long-term care and unaware that half their number will require institutional or specialized home care by their 80th year, this population is growing at the rate of 5 times the general population. The question, would you support and sign a bill that encourages the purchase and retention of long-term care insurance by the age 50 to 60 population when rates are lower by replacing the present one-time $500 tax credit with 2 $250 credits for 2 years, then an annual $500 credit thereafter on new long-term care insurance purchased?
Want to repeat that?
So, I mean, I will repeat the question.
Yeah, I'll try to remember some of that. When you say encourage, legislation to encourage the utilization of long-term care insurance or purchase of long-term care insurance, I'd have to look at the actual bill before talking about what it would be. To compel somebody to do that, and particularly in our environment where so much is taken out of a person's earnings, they may not be able to afford at 50 years old or 52 or 55 to put that additional money to the side. But we have to look at how that is structured. If it is structured in a way that there are, like you said, tax credits, that can go with it, similar to what the IRAs or similar to the 529 plans for education. That is something that's worth considering, but I'd have to look at that.
Thank you.
I'm Delegate Ron George. In 2007-2008, I sponsored a bill that would give a subtraction modification and increase the amount that you could subtract that would help you pay for long-term health care premiums and a tax credit to do the same. I sponsored it for 2 years. It didn't seem to be going, and so I passed it off to Delegate Hucker, a Democrat from Montgomery County, and I've co-sponsored it with him every year. You mentioned a very true dichotomy. What people don't realize is if people can get long-term health care, you're not going to have as much expense on the Medicare-Medicaid side. So the fiscal note made it look far worse. They didn't understand that it would decrease the amount of people on the Medicaid from the state. And that's how you end up being able to pay for it. So I like the plan. My bill wasn't broken down as much as this one. And I like the idea. Somebody put a lot of thought into this. Who did that? Oh, the lady in the back's raising her hand. Oh, it's my time on. Very good.
Maryland NARF.
Well, there you go, because NARF supported the bill and loved the bill, and so NARF. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This next question.
Got to walk around for this one. Notice anything different about me, folks?
You're missing a shoe.
I'm missing a shoe. Thank you very much. You know why I'm missing a shoe? Because I can't afford to buy the other one.
So this question is for Mr. Quinn and Mr. George. According to the latest statistics, Maryland women earn 85 cents to every dollar earned by men for the same work. What would you do to ensure pay equity for all Marylanders and reduce the pay gap?
I guess I'll go first. Well, one thing you'll find out about me is I'm pretty much fair across the board. If you get a job and it's the same job as somebody else, the paycheck should be the same. And if you're not getting the same paycheck and I'm governor, come knock on my door and we'll go knock on your boss's door together and find out why. That's the best I can do for you. I cannot sit there with every employee and sit there, every business owner and say, what are you paying this person, what are you paying that person? I can tell them to, but we all know that work isn't just, I go to work and they do everything they're supposed to do. Businesses do everything they can not to give you what you want. I know. We were sitting here talking about sick leave. You know what I got to do for sick leave? If I'm sick, I have to go to a doctor. Spend half my day at a doctor, get a sick note because I was feeling a little ill and I couldn't drive the truck today. So that wasn't any help to me. I'm sick and I can't get sick leave. To get sick leave, I have to sit at the doctor all day. What we really need is personal days, 7-day personal days that you can use for anything. No excuse. You call in, I'm taking a personal day. Bye. That's what the law should be. Sick days is just another way the business can stop you from getting something. And I'm running out of time, so just let me say that if you do have that problem, I'm governor, I will do whatever I can to come with you and fix the problem. Thank you. I think I turned it off. Turned it off on me.
You know, my mom graduated from college in 1940, and she was an illustrator in New York. She was an artist. She went to Pratt Institute. She was an artist. She met my dad. He was an engineer. Pratt in those days was engineering and art. And my dad went off, and he was doing all this work, and they were thinking about getting engaged. She says, no, I want to be a career woman for a little while. She couldn't get paid what the men were getting paid back then. She told me all those stories, and it was in just then, it's on just now. Part of what I'm going to do, I mean, we have to make sure that people understand that there shouldn't be any gender difference in this. This is if you're equipped to do the job. The female employees I have working for me have tremendous gifts that they give back, and I make sure that they're paid well. I will not pay a woman any less. My administration, by the way, people seem to be for this equality. The Obama administration, you heard, I'm not hitting on Democrats, I'm just saying, they did not realize that women in the same positions were being paid less than the men. Same thing happened in O'Malley's administration, they looked at that. I'm going to have women in my administration. The head of my business and economic development is going to be a woman. My running mate is a woman. I'm going to make sure people understand that in this whole state, we want that equality on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we've hit the end of the questions that I have, although I do have some extras that I would ask before we have this 2-minute closing statements. But I think what I'm going to do is start at this end, but I'm going to skip over you because I want to ask the men this question.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to start at this end.
What happened to equality?
Who do you think is the most influential woman in Maryland politics and why? Well, then everybody can answer it, okay? We'll start at this end.
Wow. What a question. The most influential woman in Maryland politics and why? That's a great question. I can't answer that. No, I really can't, because I honestly, and I don't like pulling things out of my behind and throwing things out there. I haven't thought it through. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll allow my counterparts to answer that, and if there's time for me to come back, I will, but it's going to take me some time to think that through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it won't take me any time. I know right off the top of my head. Margaret Flowers. If anybody knows Margaret Flowers, she's the one who just recently got hauled out of the FCC meeting where they're giving our internet and ending internet neutrality. She's the one who is out there unfurling TPP posters and telling people to watch these global corporate policies. She's the one advocating for expanded and improved Medicare for all because she cares about public health. She is the one who affects public policy in Maryland and nationally. And there's no one that does so any more than she does.
Thank you.
Well, I'd say the most influential would be Barbara Mikulski. I don't agree with Barbara Mikulski on a lot of things, but she is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, which is an extremely powerful position in the U.S. Senate. She has been effective in her role as representing Marylanders, and so that's, I think it's pretty simple as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
At first, I missed that you said in history, but you said in history for
Oh,
Maryland?
you said
No, just in Maryland politics, but it doesn't,
Well, it's not a political figure, but I would say Nancy Grasmick, who headed our education program. She took us from a ranking in education up to #1 in many ways. I know being on the Ways and Means Committee, we've dealt with the education issue. Both Jolene and I serve on that education subcommittee, and we've seen firsthand a lot of these issues and how tough they are to deal with at every level. And so many problems come up for our teachers. And I think she did a tremendous job for our teachers and for our education system. And I think that's where it all starts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to amen Senator Barbara Mikulski, because as chair of appropriations, that's historic in its own way, and it's so useful for our state. Right now, we're in a battle with Virginia to get the FBI, and I think we're going to win that battle. And you know why? Because Barbara Mikulski is the chair of appropriations. So she's been serving us for years. And she's definitely a firecracker. There's no one here who doesn't know her. And she's probably the most popular politician in the state. So I would say definitely Senator Barbara Mikulski.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to surprise you. I'm not actually going to give you a name because she's a minor. I went to this function that was offered by a 16-year-old girl. And what her group did was they actually went to the State House and they helped legislators get bills passed. They actually testified. This young lady was 16 years old, and if you met her, you would think that she was 28. She told me that some of the legislators thought that she was an intern. So I don't want to throw her name out because I don't know if it's proper for me to throw out a minor's name, but she is going to make the biggest change in Maryland in the next 10 years because she cares, she knows what she's doing, and believe it or not, she's probably smarter than all of us sitting at this table.
Thank you. Back to you. Would you like to
You know what I'm talking about.
I was down on the Eastern Shore talking to watermen and fishermen down there, and I went over to Smith Island. And you all might not even have heard of Smith Island, but Smith Island is part of Maryland, believe it or not, even though they talk a different dialect. There's some beautiful folks over there. But while over there, I remember a couple of folks cornered me as they realized I was running for governor. Two things they said to me. Number one, we're very impressed that a gubernatorial candidate came over here to talk to us. And number two, of all the elected officials, only one has made their way to Smith Island. It was actually Babs, Senator Mikulski. You don't have to agree with everything that someone says or does to think that they are strong in this state. So I would definitely say Babs, but in addition to that, I'm going to say Ellen Salbury. I'm going to say Ellen Salbury because she ran for governor here in this state and actually won. Before we went to sleep, she was up by 85 votes. When we woke up, she lost by 85 votes. The courage that she had, and she continues to display, and this lady again, the Honorable Ellen Salbury, she's not supporting me for governor, but she's still a very strong woman in politics here in Maryland. I want to give it to both of them, Babs and Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I thank you all for answering that. I think was the hardest question of the evening, and I thank you for your honesty and for answering that. With that, I'll put the other hard questions away.
Yay.
And now you can take a breath, yay, and just take a thought because it's time for closing statements. And they are 2-minute closing statements. And we will start at this end of the table with Mr. Quinn and just move on down.
I came to Frederick this morning. I took the day off, so I came up here early because Frederick is just full of history. And I figured if I was going to lose a day's pay, I might as well enjoy some of the day. And me and my wife, we went to the battlefield right here in Frederick, and I learned about a battle from the Civil War when there was a couple of Union troops sitting here at the river, and the Confederates came up and they were going to try to take over Washington. And that's how I picture this year's governor race. We have the two-party agenda with millions of dollars, 1,400 new regulations this year, trying to come across the river to keep control of Washington. And I'm going to stand on the other side with you, and I'm going to stop them. I have my veto stamp in my hand. I'm ready to beat their papers right into the trash can. I'm ready to reduce your taxes, starting with sales tax. I'm ready to sit there and take all these regulations that we have, which is in the thousands. I could bring semi-trucks full of regulations here. And we'll start going through those regulations, trashing the trash, fixing what's condensed, so that you can actually know if you're a criminal or not in this state. Most of you will know that I'm also for legalizing marijuana. And the reason I want to legalize marijuana is because the war on drugs is not working. We have not stopped one person from smoking marijuana, but we have put 80% of the prison population in jail for smoking marijuana. When these young men get out of jail, do you think they're going to get a job? They have a felony record. They are not going to get a good job. They're going to be in McDonald's. They're going to be in Wendy's. And then you're going to hear these legislators come up and tell you, oh, they can't make a living wage. Well, of course they can. We put them where they're at. This has to stop. We have to start working together to stop the two-party agenda from making us their slaves. We have to start running our country. And if you put me in the governor's office to be their referee, I guarantee you I'm on your side and I will work with you to do whatever it takes to make this a great place to live again. Thank you very much for having me. Like I said, this is historic. Nobody ever wants to hear the Libertarians until after the primary.
Thank you very much.
This campaign, this election, and every election, it's always important, right? But this election is critically important because it's the difference, at least in the Democrats for sure, between who has experience and who doesn't. So Doug Gansler has been serving us for 22 years. He's been fighting for us, for our families, for our children, for people who are in prison. He's been fighting for them after he puts them in prison because he used to be state's attorney of Montgomery County. He used to be an assistant U.S. attorney in D.C. And he knows that sometimes people need to go to jail. But when they come out, he wants to make sure they have a chance. He wants to also make sure that we're all safe, whether it's from internet predators or from, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I have a crayon. Okay, I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't count into my 2 minutes. In any event, don't tell anyone that happened. I don't want to see it on Twitter. So Doug Ansler's been fighting for us. And right now, as Attorney General, Doug has brought back $4.5 billion in foreclosure relief to our state. He has brought back $4.5 billion against an electric company that was dirtying our air. He got $4 billion from ExxonMobil for dirtying our water with a gas spill. So he has been an extremely effective Attorney General. He's got more than 400 attorneys that he oversees right now. That's a big office. 400 and some attorneys plus support staff. He's the only one with the executive experience. He has been an effective leader, and he's the only one running on the Democratic side who's ready to take the helm. And I am sure in November that he's the one who can win for the Democrats and for the state.
Thank you.
She just helped me figure out what to do if I had the Rick Perry moment. I know what that was. We sit next to each other in ways and means we're always going at it with each other. We have fun. Okay, now you can start the clock. Okay. I'm Ron George, and I want to build a new Maryland. And I mean that sincerely. Too many people are suffering. It's very hard to get along. It's hard to get a job in this state. Our private sector has not grown, yet our government jobs have grown. Now, how are you going to pay for them? We put a big hurt on businesses. To grow our tax base in here, we have to become more business friendly in order to create jobs. Those entry-level and mid-level jobs are important. I'm a businessman. I understand small business. I know what they're going through. But I will be a governor for everybody. The Baltimore Sun was surprised that I had a plan that helped to build a tax base in Baltimore, to rebuild Baltimore so we weren't losing money there, so other jurisdictions could keep their money home. I got over this a few days ago, I thought. And it's important that we do that. I also have a plan for education. I had a plan for Baltimore children's zones, modeled after the Harlem children's zones for Baltimore City. So the incubators of crime areas, we get the crime out and we help these kids learn. And their test scores go up and their attitudes go up. I understand human trafficking. I saw it firsthand. We can't have that in the state. I understand the drug problem. My degree in clinical psychology, I know how people are suffering. I started volunteer organizations. I started family centers and counseling services. A lot of these dealt with women's issues. That sensitivity is very hard to teach. You have to see things firsthand. So I promise you I'll be a governor for everyone. I want to help increase our economy, get the jobs back. I've gone after waste in budgets when I saw that things were going to the right places. I uncovered how one business had wasted time and time again in different audits and federal audits, $370 million that was supposed to go towards health care for children in Baltimore City and in Prince George's County, and it was misappropriated and went to people it wasn't supposed to, people who didn't deserve it. We've got to stop that waste. You get rid of the waste, I can get more money to where it's supposed to go. I'm Ron George, and I could use your vote. Thank you all.
Hello again, I'm Boyd Rutherford. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor with Larry Hogan. As I mentioned before, neither Larry nor I are career politicians. Some of you may know Larry's father, and I know there were a couple of people who said to me, Larry is running. I knew him several years ago. Well, no, this is Larry Jr. who is running, and he is not a career politician and has not held office. But what Larry and I both know, we worked together in the Ehrlich administration. We know how the government actually operates from the executive branch, and we know where the waste is. We've conducted audits, or just looked at, I should say, we've investigated the current audits that are there, both federal and state audits, and found over $1.7 billion in waste that has not been addressed by the current administration. That is one of the first places that we can go and look. And I mentioned earlier that Larry started a nonpartisan group called Change Maryland. Change Maryland 3 years ago became the leading voice in opposition to the policies of the Brown-O'Malley administration. What we talk about when we say Change Maryland is that we want to change Maryland so that our children can get good jobs when they come out of school, unlike my children who had to leave the state to get, or 2 of them had to leave the state to get good jobs. That our parents, our grandparents, and even those of us who are thinking about retirement can stay in the state with our families and not think about moving out of state where the cost of living is a little less and our pensions are not taxed. As well as mentioned before, change Maryland so that a quality education is not based on the census tract or zip code that you live in. And so those are the things that Larry and I will work on in the Hogan-Rutherford administration, and we'd love to have your support. Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for coming out. My name is Cindy Walsh, Democratic candidate for governor. You've heard tonight that businesses are leaving Maryland. You hear that citizens are leaving Maryland because of the taxes. Well, you know what? National and global corporations are being brought into Maryland, and they're the ones who are winning all of the awards for contracts. They're making subcontractors and subcontractors of some contractors of our small and regional businesses here in Maryland, and that's what's putting them out of business. They can't make a profit because the state is awarding all of the contract bids to these larger corporations, and who sometimes aren't even in Maryland. And also, it's not regional. People around the state are not getting their fair share of contracts, and small businesses are being put out of business. Well, you know what they're doing to recruit these national and global corporations? They're giving them tax breaks. They're subsidizing the cost of all their operations, supposedly because we need them to create jobs, when actually we don't. They're killing jobs. They're not paying taxes. It doesn't matter if it's Bob Ehrlich as a Republican or O'Malley as a Democrat. When you make corporations tax-free, basically, and actually send our tax base to them as subsidy, somebody's got to be paying the taxes. And that's why the taxes are going to the working and the middle class, and more and more and more and more. And they will continue, because as more global corporations come in, they're going to exert power, and we're going to pay more. So if it's the tax base you want to lower, it has nothing to do with how it's allocated to public services or public programs. It's the subsidy, corporate subsidy, that we need to get rid of. And you start by building a domestic economy, small businesses, regional businesses, and let those big guys go somewhere else. Cindy Walsh for governor. I want you to look at my website, Maryland elections, governor's race. Take a look. You'll like my platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, first, let me thank you all for putting up with us for the past 35, 40 minutes. I am honored to be here. My wife, Rosha, on behalf of our campaign, our entire team, Pat Kelly, who's up front. And I want to end my comments with the same way I started. I want to invite you down a road that looks at every problem in Maryland and sees opportunity. Very much nonpartisan. You've heard that a lot. I hope that continues to be the trend as we move closer and closer to June and November. Because again, I am convinced I want to be that Marine Corps officer, business guy, Taxpayers Association chairman and father of 4, that constantly reminds you that we can do better, that we can find solutions and work together. No one in this room would agree to take $200 million from teacher pensions to continue to balance the budget. No one in this room would agree that we should continue to drive business out. Medicaid costs are going up because poverty levels are increasing because people cannot get a job. And I can't even engage in common sense conversations about a solution and a platform to change that without people first asking, are you Republican or Democrat? True story, I'm in Kensington, Maryland. I'm walking down the street in a parade in Kensington, wishing everyone a happy Labor Day. A lady looks at me and she says, you're a Republican, and rolls her eyes at me. I look back at her, Fred, I said, ma'am, I am a Republican, but that's not why I'm here. I just want to wish you a happy Labor Day. I extended my right hand to shake it. She looked at my hand like something was growing off of it. I'm used to that. I knew what to do, put my hand back. She looked back at me in the middle of the parade and said, "You know what, Mr. Lawler? Dr. King had a dream, but you're not it." Now, there was a lot of things I wanted to say to her. And I held my tongue. I like you, but I don't like your hand. But I held my tongue. This woman knew nothing about me. She did not know I married my college sweetheart. She did not know I was raising 4 daughters that are bankrupting me. She even had no idea that I am a Marine officer fighting for her right and freedom to insult me in this parade. All she knew was my skin color and my party affiliation. This partisan politics is the new segregation of our day. If we don't turn a corner, it won't be long before there'll be Democrat water fountains on the left side and Republican water fountains on the right. We can solve our problems. We can go a new way forward. I'm Charles Lawler. I want to be your governor. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. On behalf of the Business and Professional Women, I also would like to thank our co-sponsors, the Business and Professional Women's Foundation of Maryland, the Frederick Community College, Francis Scott Key Lions Club, Maryland Federation of National Active and Retired Federal Employees. I want to thank you all so much for coming out, for your honesty and your integrity, and for not referring us all to your websites to get your questions answered. And I think there were some pretty tough questions, and you all did a great job answering them. Thank you so very much.